Packages are great. They provide a lot of power to R. But as great as they are, there are potential package problems that you should be aware of. Packages are written by individuals who can make mistakes. Obviously, the safest kind of packages are those that are in the CRAN because they've been heavily vetted. There are individuals with expertise that have tried and tested them to make sure they're doing what they claim to do. Nonetheless, there might be subtle errors, so we should always be aware when we use the packages of others that there may be an error from time to time, and communicating with the individual who wrote the package is usually the best way to fix that error. Functions within packages can supersede other functions. You're usually notified about this in a warning message, but it's possible that a function that you have in a package has the same name as another function that you want to use. Now, there is a way around that, and that is to take the function that you originally have, give it a new name, you know how to do that by assigning it to another object, and then load the package. That way both functions will be available to you. Packages can conflict with one another. Sometimes people wonder why RStudio is so quote-unquote buggy. That is, why are there so many times that it will freeze or somehow not do what they expect it to do? Actually, just about every time that happens, it's not the fault of RStudio, it's the fault of what RStudio is trying to run, namely, base R and all the packages that have been loaded. One of the advantages of using a program that is written by a company who maintains the complete program is that every single thing that they release, they can test with every other thing that they release to make sure that it all works together. So if you use, for example, SAS or SPSS or Systat or any of those statistical packages, you expect everything to run fine all the time. Such is not the case when you load packages in R, and the more packages that you load into your environment, the higher the potential for conflict. This does not mean that R is not worth it. It very much is. The fact that so many statisticians and others all over the world are writing for R is what gives it such power. It's just this is the downside. These people are not working together with one another to make sure that everyone works well together. So be aware that packages can conflict with one another. When this happens to me, I usually, by process of elimination, try to find out what package is causing the problem, and then from further elimination, find out what it is within that package causing the problem. Packages may need to be updated. Base R is updated, but packages are often written under an earlier version. And if anything in base R changes to the extent that it might change what happens with the package needs to be updated. The R core team is frequently reminding package owners to update their packages, but nonetheless, people are people, and some people are quicker about that than others. So there may be times when you have a package and it needs to be updated. This is why you'll often get a message when you load a package about what version of R it was actually created under, so you know how old or new it is. And then unscrupulous individuals exist. I have never run into this in R. As much as I've used it, as many packages as I've used and loaded, including packages that were not from the CRAN, because the CRAN will help with this problem. The CRAN isn't going to let someone submit a package that doesn't do what you intend it to do. Just making you aware that it is possible anytime you obtain something from someone else. If you don't know anything about that someone else, they could, for example, be opening a door into your system. There are a lot of businesses that are cautious about using R or even will not use R. I've seen this especially in areas around here, around Columbia, where school districts will not allow some of my former students who come to maintain their data to use R to maintain their data because they're worried about the security. Now, the fact is that R, because it has people working in so many domains, R has user groups that actually focus entirely on packages for making R secure. So I would suspect that if someone wanted to be really cautious about data security, you probably could get your system as secure or even more secure than you could with a commercial system. Now, speaking of companies that don't allow R, this is not an extensive list. In fact, the list of companies that do use R is very extensive. You already saw earlier on that Google uses R, but that's just one company out of thousands and thousands, including Fortune 500 companies that use R. So I'm not meaning for you to be scared knowing that unscrupulous individuals exist. I'm just alerting you to the fact that this is possible. Now, how do we deal with these potential problems? First, whenever you can, obtain your packages from the CRAN. The CRAN does a really good job of vetting. Also, when you get a package from the CRAN, you know that you're going to have help included because they require that. You're going to have some vignettes. You probably will have quite a bit of documentation. So this is always my first go-to when I'm looking for a package. But if I can't find a package there, that doesn't mean I won't go elsewhere. It's just I have to do more research about the package. I have to see if others are using it, if there are multiple people collaborating that include people I trust. So research the package. Update packages regularly. There are ways to do that easily right within RStudio, and you should do this. Only load from a library when you need a function from the package. I have actually seen a number of you, my students, load packages at the top of your notebook that you then never use. As an example of that, I always use the here library, and I see students loading the here library right at the top of their notebook, just like I do, but then whereas I'm using it, they're not. So I would recommend that you hold off on packages that you don't actually need and don't even load them. Read warning messages when you perform a library load. Those messages may be telling you about functions that will no longer be available to you. As I've mentioned, if you need those functions, then knowing that those functions will be overwritten will allow you to rename those functions before you load the package. Packages are powerful. I want you to use them. I want you to use many of them, not necessarily all at once. I want you to select those packages you need and use them when you need them. Don't get into the habit of just loading a whole bunch of your packages at the beginning of your scripts. Instead, when you get to a point in your script when you find that you could benefit from a package that is not in base R, that's the time to think about using that package.